Hi, this is Juan Soto. I am the founder of AccessUserGroups.org, and this is our first meeting of the Access Beginners Group. Welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Appreciate it. We would love to have you at our live meetings. We meet every third Tuesday of the month. So if you could join us live, that'd be great. I love a live audience, and you can ask questions and we can interact. We would love to have you at our next meeting. So go to AccessUserGroups.org, click on the calendar link, and you can see the next meeting there posted towards the beginning of November. I usually post the meetings. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about me and the user group, and give you some feedback. Basically, we started this. Basically, about me is I'm an Access MVP, and MVP stands for Most Valuable Professional. It's a program at Microsoft where you have to earn every year the MVP tag. I earn it because I do presentations like this. I have a blog. I have a worldwide organization of multiple user groups. And by the way, you can see that on the calendar, all the user groups, when they meet throughout the month. We have Spanish and English, as well as Italian now. And you can link with me on LinkedIn. There's my LinkedIn profile. My expertise is Access with SQL Server. I know how to make those two work great, especially the cloud. And my Twitter is jsoto22. So, and now you have another group, Access with SQL Server, which is a lot more advanced topics. We do have a group for Access beginners that I will show you at the end of the presentation, a link to. So you can join us and join the discussion on LinkedIn. Love to have you there. Not an expert on SQL Server, but I am an expert on Access with SQL Server. We started this group because we got a lot of great feedback. You know, we have people who want to learn about Access, and they've reached out to us and they told us so in our surveys. And most of the other groups that meet throughout the month in English, Spanish, and Italian, they deal with slightly higher end topics. Not ideal for someone who wants to just get started with Access. And quite frankly, we need more people to learn Access. We are an aging population, and Access is just an amazing product, and you're going to see why in a second here. Now, Microsoft Access is the most popular database in the world, and there's a reason for that. It comes with Office 365 and a lot of different standalone versions of Office. Not all of them, but you also can purchase it separately. It's great for small databases, less than 1 million records. Good for departments, small departments, one person all the way to 15 people. Works great with other Office programs. Like you can send email from Access. Like you can click a button, email, copy the invoice to a customer, right? Or you can click another button to create a spreadsheet from a report that you created. So it's a lot of tight integration with the rest of Office. That's why when somebody calls me in my practice, I have a practice where I help companies throughout the world with their Access. When they call me up and say, hey, what do you think about Access? Or you do Access or web? And we do both in my practice. We got both Access and web developers. I tell them about the different things that Access can do, and I show them, like I'm going to show you here shortly. And they're able to make a decision which one is the preferred. Usually the rule of thumb is, if you have a tight budget, Access is great because a web app can take twice as long and therefore cost twice as much to create than Access. Now, Access is not a spreadsheet. It's not a word processor. It was not designed for hundreds of transactions per minute, right? It's just not that, right? It's more like a small database that you can use in your business or your department that doesn't require a server, right? It's a file-based system, so there is no server in the cloud or anything like that, although you can pair it with a server in the cloud. Right? That's what SQL Server is, if you didn't know what that was. But really, it's designed for a small task, right? You can go beyond 15 people. So I've had it where I can program up to 25 people. But above that, you're pushing it. And there is a limit to how much your Access file can grow. 2 gigabytes. So as you approach 2 gigabytes, it'll get slower and slower. And honestly, if you're approaching the 2 gigabyte limit, you probably should be considered upgrading it, right? To pairing it up with SQL Server or migrating to the web. Now, there are some drawbacks to using Access. It's not as intuitive as Word, right? where you can open the Word program and you can crank out a letter without being an expert in Word or even knowing much about Word, right? You can start typing and print it out, you're done. Same thing with Excel, right? You can throw together a basic Excel spreadsheet, put some numbers in each cell and add some formulas and you're done. But when you start Access, it starts with a table design. And so you need to know what tables are and that what are records and what are forms and what are queries, right? It takes a lot. The ramp learning curve for Access takes a lot more. And it's a worthwhile journey. Of course, you're probably thinking, Juan, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But I found that the product is very, very reliable, very flexible. And I want to give you some examples of that. It can get frustrating to learn it, but once you get over the learning curve, and I'm hoping this group will help you do that, you can help you out. Now, I want to show you a demo, but before you show you a demo, I do want to talk about a few things that, a few examples of stuff I've worked on over the years to give you an idea of the wide range of solutions you've developed. More recently, I had an ice cream factory in Michigan that has 150 employees, and they run the whole factory in Access, from order taking to inventory to production, scheduling, to warehousing, to shipping. Everything in that factory is done in Access. Now, normally, you would get what they call an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning Software, to run a factory, right? That's what usually everybody does. But they can be quite expensive, right? They can cost millions of dollars, quite the learning curve as well, a long time to install, configure, get people to work with it. And at the end of the day, you're really using somebody else's vision for what that software is. With Access, you're actually designing the software exactly to your needs. So that's another reason why Access is so great. You can design it to exactly fit your business like a glove, or your department for a glove. So you're a department manager, you design it to exactly the way you want it. You don't owe it to anybody. There's no monthly fees. You're not doing any of that stuff, right? It's a database that you can use for smaller things. Like, for example, I had another case of a factory that does laser printers. And they put all these laser printers on a skid, and they needed a sign to go on the skid. And so they created an Access database. So they prints out the giant 8.5 by 11 label that they wrap around the skid, right? Great example how I use Access. It interfaces with their ERP software. So you can enter the order number. It goes, grabs what kind of product it is and the SKU and everything else. Recently, I toured a toy warehouse in Illinois, where they're using Access for order processing and to manage the warehouse. It was a large warehouse with multiple rows of stacks, four rows high, really big, and it was full of toys and dolls and costumes. They use Access to manage everything. So they'll print out an order, give it a picker. The picker will go down the aisle. And what impressed me about this Access database was it was smart enough so you can pick everything down one aisle. Well, you have to, so you're not going from aisle 2 to aisle 42, right? They have that many files there, but rather, but leave you on aisle 2 to pick all the orders. You then take them to the mailing station, and then you go grab another order, and that might be on aisle 42. But then you're not going back and forth around the warehouse. So I love that about the Access database. And they use the Access database to manage everything: receiving defective goods, receiving inventory, shipping orders. Just an amazing testimonial on how Access can be flexible, powerful, mission critical, and be designed exactly to your needs. And who can say about most software in the business, right? Most software as a service on the web, again, somebody else's vision for how you should run your business. I'm going to give you one last example. I got plenty. I'll be talking throughout the months here. And again, we meet every third Tuesday of the month. One more example is I had a company call me up. They have nuclear reactors. And so they, as part of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, they have to X-ray the reactor walls every so often. And during the X-rays, they'll find cracks in the wall. Now, these walls are pretty thick, as you can imagine. A reactor wall is several feet thick. That's why they use X-rays, right? And they use Access to keep track of the cracks in the wall and to compare between X-ray scans if that crack is growing or stable, right? So they use the images, they save the images in Access, they file reports with the government with that. Just a wonderful application. The joke around the office was, I'll go if there is a need because I already have my kids, right? I'm not going to be impacted by the radiation. And then, I view glowing in the dark as side benefit, but that was a joke. So over the years, we developed a wide range of things. I'll be bringing more examples to this group, so hopefully you can listen to many more as we progress through the months. All right, so I've got a demo I'd like to share with you, so let me get that going right now. All right, so this is an example of professionally designed Access database. And it's important to me that I show you this because I want this to be an inspiration for you in this journey, right? And a lot of times people start up with Access, they have no idea the capabilities. So I thought I'd give you a quick demo of what's possible with Access and show you all the wonderful things. Now, I am not expecting you to do any of these features in your first Access database, right? This is just so that you have an idea and can do it. First of all, it's a beautiful layout, right? It almost looks like a web app. And by the way, if you follow us in November or in December, at one point, I'll be telling you where you can get all these wonderful icons for free. But we got some beautiful iconology here for the different features of the database. This whole white area over here is actually only reserved for administrators. Right now, I'm logged in as a regular user. That's why there's all that white black space there. But take a look at this feature. You got the last 25 customers viewed, right? So the database knows who I am. I'm logged in as Juan Soto. And it knows all the customers, that I've looked at, the last 25 of them. So, for example, today's Monday and last Thursday, I remember speaking with working on customers. Oh yeah, it was Be First. So then I can just double click here, and it will launch Be First, and I can see all the information. So I'll do that right now. And there it is, right? Very easy and convenient. And then I can see their proposals. I can see their orders and the open invoices and everything, closed invoices. This is what we call a 360-degree view of the customer. You got everything here, right? You got contacts. You've got the proposal that's submitted, the order history, invoicing, right? Even customer notes, even documents associated, right? You can have documents associated with a customer. So it's a great way to keep all the information regarding a company in one place. Then from here, I can create a proposal. I can create a proposal. I can send them an email, do a map over their address, et cetera, et cetera. So just a wonderful way of organizing data. Another great feature that I love is this pending task where a customer may call, say, hey, I'd like to talk to Juan about that proposal they submitted. So if I click here, all events, I can see what events are pending, make return a call, create a proposal or invoice, what have you, right? So just a wonderful way to keep track. So when that person logs in, they see what their events are. Then we got the quick search area here in the bottom. This is important because if you got somebody on the phone, you don't want them waiting, right? Time is money. So when they call you and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about my proposal. Great, give me the proposal number. Oh, it's 12345. Okay, great. I got it. What's the question, right? Sometimes they don't know the proposal. Sometimes all they know is their purchase order number. So you can come over here, enter that purchase order number. So it's a quick way to get to the information you need. There is a search, right? I can search proposals and orders. I can search customers. I can even integrate Power BI in here. One of my other favorite features is sometimes you need an overview of the company, right? A company lives and dies by their orders. So I'll click here, open orders, and I'll see all the open orders at that company, what their status is. Are they pending approval? Are they open, right? What the status is. So here I can click on the order number to open up that order and see what the information is. Another great way to organize everything. But if you're in upper management and you want to have a feel for what's happening with your firm, you can come down here and see that you got 102 open orders. Now, it could be 102 is a great problem to have, right? That's wonderful. You want to see that 100 orders. Maybe 50 open orders is a bad thing. Or it could be 100 orders is not so good. Maybe you're expecting to see 500 open orders, right? So as you see the information over time, you'll be able to gauge what's normal and not normal, which is a great feature of this kind of concept where you have this queue of open orders. So that's a professionally done access database, right? It allows you to be able to see and interact with the data. Now, if you're willing to start this journey of access because you've got data that you need to work on, and I'm glad you're here because everybody deals with data. No matter what kind of business you have, you can have a hot dog stand in the corner. You've got data. You have to keep inventory of your hot dogs and your buns and the orders that you've did every day. Now, it could be that data that's on a card, a small index card, and that's fine, but it's still data. So no matter how big your business is, you're in the business of data. And there's three things you need to do when you're dealing with data. You need to protect it with backups, right? Hopefully verified backups. We'll talk about that some other time. You want to make sure it's healthy data, right? You heard good data in means good data out. So what that means is you put in good data so you can have good reports coming out of the system, good analysis coming out of the system. And finally, the third aspect of data is you leverage that data with reports and analysis. So it's important that as a business, you develop a database that makes sense for your business. And that's what's great about Access. It allows you to fully customize what you need. There's some building blocks when you create your first Access database. You can start with a template, which is great. I'm going to show you templates in a minute. Or you can start from scratch. And I'll show you how that looks like as well. Now, but you have to understand that databases compose of a lot of things. Primarily, it starts with tables, right? So you may have a customer table, you might have an employee table, you might have an order table. And we're going to be talking about how to keep those separate and how to make them work together, bring it all together, right? But a table is a unique identifier of similar data. So if it's a customer table, you're not expecting orders in there, right? You're expecting customer records. So each record is a unique customer. That's another aspect of a table. Each record is unique. It could be that there's two similar sounding customers, that John Smith, for example. You might have two John Smiths, but their address is different, right? So they're unique records. And then forms is what I encourage you to always use to view, edit, and create data, right? Also modify, edit, right? Or delete data. And reports is what you use to get out, right? To leverage that data you collected. A lot of businesses are great at collecting data. You use reports to analyze that data and crank out the information you need. And then more advanced stuff would be to create macros and modules and programming, which is what that system I showed you earlier. Now, when you start a new Access database, start with the why. A lot of times, you're trying to automate things, to make your life more easier, to improve your work conditions, right? To fulfill a business need. And sometimes you hit it out of the ballpark. I've seen people who have no knowledge of Access design a database that's become mission critical. And then they hire me, a professional developer, to fine tune it and make it go on to the next level. So what you do today may very well turn into a mission critical database in the future. And use a template. Can you keep it simple, right? I don't want you shooting for the moon here. Your first database. You want to keep it simple. All right, let's do a quick demo on templates real quick here. All right, let me show you the functionality of templates. I'm going to launch Access. And you can either start a blank database, which we'll do in a few minutes here, or you can pick a template you already opened. I had opened all these before. Notice that you can click on more templates over here. Now you can search for templates, all the different templates. Like, for example, if I want to do inventory, wide range of templates dealing with inventory. I'm going to pick, I recommend you start with the Northwind Starter Edition. Give it a name, random name I've come up with. So download the template, prepare the database, and it does. I'm going to ask you to enable the content. Every time there's a database that has code associated with it, like this one, it's going to give you the security warning. So I'll click on enable content. It's not a problem. You can trust it. Now you get this welcome message. You can uncheck this welcome message in the future if you wanted to. Make sure you check out the video. It's quite nice. And then click on continue. This database was generated by a series of Access MVPs. So this is a great way to learn from us how to properly design a database. Click on Add Me. This has a lot of great features that you can learn from. One of the biggest being this view of open orders. I love this view because as an owner of the business, I want to be able to see where I'm at with open orders. It turns out I have 32 open orders. Now that might be good. It might be bad, right? Depends on your business. But over time, you're going to get a feel for what is good and what is bad in terms of open orders. And this view of a consolidated view of open orders is great. So I can come in here, open an order by clicking on the number of the order. Notice this order ID 58. I can check out this order and then close the form to go back to my list in here. So I want you to use this template or any other template if it gets you 90% there. Right? And then you can modify it to your own needs to get to 100%. There's several things you need to see. Number one is this has what's called a filter by group and a custom group named Northwind Traders 2.3. Here you can see the different sections organized by tables, forms, and so forth. I don't like using this view, so I'm going to switch this to all access objects by object type. Now I've got tables, queries, forms, and so forth. When I click on tables, I can see all the tables in a database. So if a template works for you, by all means start with a template, but I'm going to show you how to start from scratch. I'll close Access, launch Access again. This time I'll click a blank database, give it a name. And this is what you see when you start Access. It's not very encouraging when you start out, right? Because now you need to know what a table is. What are records? When do you get to the point where you actually create a report? That's a long ways down the road. You still have to create your tables, enter your data, create the form, create a report. It's not easy getting started with Access. So that's why I said, take a look at the templates. And I said earlier that it's easier to start with Word because when you open Word, your doc, just start typing a letter to him and make concern. This letter is a blah, 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 and you can just print it out and you're done. Same thing with Excel. Start Excel. This looks like an Excel spreadsheet. It's not. It's a table. And you can quickly put together a few numbers, a few calculations, and you're done. Not with Access. With Access, you have to create your tables, enter your data, create a form or a query or a report, and know what those concepts are. Now, when you start, it says Table 1. This is not the name it's going to save it with. It's going to ask you for a name in a second. It starts with one field ID. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to hit click to add, short text. And we're going to go over all these data types in the future meeting. But for now, picking short text, and I'm going to enter customer first name. I'll go over here to the field next to that. Again, short text. I'm going to say customer last name. And I'm going to add my last field here also with short text. I'm going to call it company name. Now, quick tip, if you want to see the full field name, you can double click just like you can like in Excel. You can double click between the two columns to expand all of them so you can see their names. Now I'm going to enter some test data, right? So I'm going to say John Doe. If I can spell John Doe, ABC Corp. And I'm going to say Jane Doe. Jane goes in here and Doe goes also from A. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why such a long field name? Customer first name, customer last name, and so forth. Because you may have other first names in your database, where I might have an employee table. That employee table may have most likely the first name and last name. So when you do a query later on, trust me on this, it's going to save you a lot of grief later. You do a query later on between the customer and employee table, having multiple fields called first name among different tables can be confusing. Always try and keep your field names unique throughout your database. So yeah, you always try to make sure you have unique names. This field here is quite unique. I'm going to add a third record and I'll show you why. I'm going to give it a different score. And I'm going to delete record 2 on purpose. And now I'm going to add another record. Notice it jumped to 4. It does not go back to the one that was missing, number 2. This is what's called an auto number field. It's a unique way to identify every record in your table. It also has some other attributes. But to show you those, I'm going to put this table, I'm going to save my table. Ask me for a name. I'm going to call it TBL Customers. TBL is a moniker I use to identify this as the table. If we're a query, I would use QRY, form FRM. And notice I also put plural my customer name, my table. I just like doing this. Some people use customer singular, some people use the TBL, some others don't. I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. I'm going to use TBL customers. Now that I've saved my table and put it in design view, the way you do that is you right-click on the tab, select design view, or you can right-click over here and select design view, or go to the home menu here and pick the design view here from this list. And now you can see how these tables are here. So you can add tables as well here, right? So I can come here, I'm going to say company phone. Also, I'll leave it as short text. But I don't like leaving this as ID. So my next tip for you is always name your ID field. So I'm just going to call it customer ID. So if I had an employee table, it starts with employee ID. It starts with ID, and then I'm going to change the employee ID right in the design view of the table. I've seen it where people leave it as ID, and then as their database grows, every table has a primary key of ID. I'm going to talk about primary key, what it is in a minute. And that's not good because it can get confusing. You want to know that this is a customer ID, put customer in front of it. Notice also I have no spaces. You can use underscore. That's fine if you want to do it that way. So if company underscore zip, but do not use spaces. That'll make your life easier later down the road. Now notice that customer ID is a primary key because it has this key there in front of it. What does a primary key mean? It means that it's unique. Every record has a unique number associated with this, or unique alpha string, because your primary keys don't have to be only numbers. They can be a combination of numbers and letters. I prefer using auto number for my primary key, and we'll be talking more about that next month in November 2024 when we talk about table design. Now that I've made these changes, I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to right-click and select Data Sheet View. And now I've got the customer ID showing there. So that's a brief introduction to tables. We're going to go over a lot more details next month when you join us. for next month's meeting. Next, we're going to talk about how to separate your data into different tables, tips for design your table, how to migrate your Excel data. Lots of great tips and tricks. So please join us. It's the third Tuesday of the month. Starts at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Chicago time. That's it for this month. If you love this meeting, please let the world know. Help us, spread the word. Also, join our LinkedIn group. Here's a handy QR code where you can join our group on LinkedIn, ask questions, learn about the latest regarding Microsoft Access, and learn more about our next group meeting. This has been Juan Soto, Microsoft Access MVP, founder of AccessUserGroups.org, chapter president of Access User Group Beginners. See you next month.